is it better to rent or to buy a house? The housing market's been cooling down recently. And by cooling down, I mean, it hasn't been the seller's market that we've had for 2020, 2021, 20, whatever, following the pandemic. It's been a shift that's been happening more towards a buyer's market, which has been great. Now, I'm not going to say we're in a buyer's market, but it's definitely not the pendulum far in the direction of the seller's market. And so with that, a lot of people are wanting to know, is it a good time to buy? Because loan applications or mortgage applications have picked up, which means that more people are wanting to see if they can qualify and how much they can qualify for. But also, inventory has also picked up, meaning that there are more houses on the market for buyers to be able to choose from. So I guess a little bit of what we're going to talk about today is just, is it a good time to buy? But then move from there into what I really feel is the better determination of whether or not it's a good time to buy. And I'll go ahead and say, before I get into it, the better determination is not going to be so much what's happening in the housing market, but it's going to be more so what's happening with your personal finances and situation, because the housing market could definitely be giving all the signals and signs of, yes, now is the time for you to jump into purchasing a home. However, you might not particularly be ready based on where you're at financially. So we'll dig a little bit into that as well. But Jilly, from your perspective, would you say that now is a good time for people to jump into the housing market just based on what we've been seeing with where interest rates are, which currently right now they're under 7, above 6.5. So we're talking about the, mid-high 6s, which is where interest rates are currently floating right now. But with what you've been seeing in inventory, because you track more of the inventory than what I track, I'm mostly tracking stuff with loans and financing. So with what you've seen, would you say that it is a good time to buy?
Yes, my philosophy, it's always a good time to buy, but even more so, and I actually just got asked this question this past Friday by some clients that I introduced you to this past Friday. But yeah, it's a good time for buyers because they're getting pretty much whatever they want. Mm-hmm. Because sellers are, I feel like when there's uncertainty, if people have excess assets or they have too much house or whatever, mm-hmm. they're trying to offload to give themselves some more cushion and create some cash flow, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are selling because, and I think I said this last week, most people's biggest expense is their house. Mm-hmm. And so they either want to downsize or, get something different. Maybe they have an even higher interest rate than what the rates are currently. And so they want to purchase again, or maybe just rent for a little while so they don't have to worry about all the added pressure of homeownership, such as all of the repairs and things coming out of their pocket. So, yes, in terms of what buyers can get, because it's a buyer's market, it's absolutely a great time to buy. However, I would say, and maybe this is a downside or a negative point, but if your credit score is not the best that it could possibly be, then maybe not. Maybe you want to wait because the interest rates are higher. You could potentially end up getting approved for less than whatever price point you may be thinking you want to stay in. Mm-hmm.
So in talking about, I guess you could say some of the stuff that goes into whether or not it's a good time for people to purchase a home. I guess getting into some of those costs. So obviously there's the upfront cost. You've got your home inspection after you go under contract, because that's really when you're going to start incurring those costs, is after you're under contract. You're going to have home inspection. It's optional, at least in Georgia, it's optional. Georgia is also a buyer beware state, so I definitely recommend getting one. But you've got
caveat emptor, isn't it? What is it? Caveat emptor? I think that's
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know exactly, but something along those lines. I have heard the caveat before.
Once you buy it, it's yours.
Yes.
No back season, no refunds.
However, there is still a law about sellers that need to disclose known material defects with the property. And that's another thing where getting into a little side tangent, just because it's a situation that I recently ran into. It ended up being nothing, but it was falling into that lines of, is there a known material defect that did not get disclosed? Because you have a lot of times sellers will sell a home with no seller's disclosure, meaning that they are not going to disclose anything to you about the property. However, it's, at least in Georgia, that does not absolve the seller from having to disclose known material defects, i.e., if the seller knows that their basement floods, then they have to disclose that. Them not having a seller's disclosure does not absolve them of that responsibility. And if it's something that they should have known, they could still be held responsible, because if the basement floods, that seller's owned that property for 2-3 years or whatever. Even if the seller can try to say, "Oh, I didn't know," it's like, but you should have known, because I've also seen cases where that has come back to bite sellers as well. But that's a side tangent. In any case, getting back to the cost of the what you need to look out for, it's going to be the home inspection. Then there's going to be the appraisal. The appraisal is probably going to run you somewhere in the range of $600 to $700, somewhere in that range.
I had $550. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
It done went up, huh?
It done went up. Exactly. How much are home appraisals now? Not appraisals, sorry, inspections. How much are home inspections?
Oh, inspections. So I was gonna say the last appraisal that you and I did, one of the last ones was like $550, but inspections they were around $350, but I feel like they've gone up to like $400, but that's for a house. They go by the square feet. So they can go all the way up to 700, 800, just depending on if it's like a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home, and it takes the inspector a while, Okay. I would say 350 is the absolute bare minimum.
Okay. Gotcha. So it can go up to there. It can be 550, depending upon how big the house is.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you've got those upfront costs. You've got the inspection, the appraisal, but then you've got, down payment and closing costs, all of that stuff. So there's the cost to just purchase the home and become the actual owner. Beyond that, to determine whether or not you're ready for home ownership, the costs you really need to also be calculating are maintenance and upkeep with the home that you're looking to purchase, because there are maintenance costs with just about every home out there. If you've got a condo, the maintenance cost might be significantly less for you as an individual. However, you pay a condo association fee, which tends to be higher, and that money goes toward maintaining all of the common areas. If there's an elevator, if there's a pool, if there's a gym, whatever it might be, that money goes toward maintaining all that stuff. So you're still contributing to it in the form of a condo association fee. You're just not the one that's actually responsible for calling the pool guy or, calling the contractor to do whatever repairs or maintenance. You pay the fee and the condo association takes care of that, or the homeowners association, if you live in an HOA, would take care of whatever the common areas are that they're responsible for. But the maintenance and upkeep, the way that you can kind of determine whether or not it's going to be a high amount or a low amount, I would say would be to look at the purchase price of the home, because at least what I've heard, and you can tell me what you've heard as well, what I've heard as a good rule of thumb is 1% of the purchase price of the home is about what you can expect to spend on average for maintenance.
Annually?
You said what?
Annually?
Annually, yes. And that doesn't mean you're going to spend that every year, because you might have several years where you don't have any issues. But then you have that year where it's like, oh, I need to do some major HVAC work, and that's going to run you like $6,000. You may have paid $300,000 for the house.
2 years and one.
So yeah, it's like now you got a huge expense, or it's like, okay, now it's got to replace the roof, and that hits you hard. So that's an average. It's not like you purchase a $300,000 house and every year you're spending $3,000 on maintenance. You might, especially if it's a newer home, you might go 5, 6, 7, years, whatever, without having to do anything major to that house.
Right.
So depending upon the condition of the house as well, will determine how much your maintenance and upkeep is going to be. The age of the home is going to determine that, in addition to the condition of the home, because you can have an old home that's in great condition and your maintenance and upkeep is low. So it really all depends on the house, but you want to look at the purchase price of the house on average. About 1% of that purchase price is at least what I have, my research has found to be about the average of what people can expect to pay month or yearly, 1% of the average yearly for their maintenance and upkeep. And so that's something that if you're able to set that aside, not all at once, but at least save up that amount year over year, that will help you take care of a lot of those expenses. And one other thing I do want to say as well, actually, you know what? I'm getting into that later. I'm gonna put a pin in that, and I'm gonna get to that later, because I was going to talk about some of the things that I'll get into it later. But I was going to talk about some of the things that basically are telltale signs that you're not ready to purchase.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll get into that shortly. But for the things that you need to be planning and preparing for, I would say that maintenance and upkeep definitely. Increases in taxes is something that can happen. It's not guaranteed, but it is something that does happen from time to time. And depending upon where you live and how, what projects, building projects the city where you're living in might be going through, or, how the funds are being managed by the city council or whoever's, collecting the taxes for you, county taxes, city taxes, might depend on how much they go up, if they go up, all of that stuff. But you could have a mortgage payment that, from one year to the next goes up another $100, $150, $200, whatever. And if your budget is already stretched so thin, that can really put a stress on things if you're, really tight on funds as it is. So
my mom used to get so mad when the tax assessment would come through and they would be like, well, they're building $700,000, $800,000, $1 million homes just outside your neighborhood. Well, that's not in my neighborhood. That's them. My house is still the same, and they were trying to really go up on those taxes. So yeah, what's going on in the area can really affect it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And to that point, I used to be of the mindset of like, oh, I own a home, and if they're building $700,000-$800,000 homes next to the one that I bought for 300 or 250 or 400 or whatever, then I was like, oh yeah, it's great. It's gonna help my property value go up. Unless you're planning on pulling cash out of that home for some other investment purpose, you don't really want your property value to just skyrocket like that, particularly on a home that you're just living in, because that means your taxes are also going to be going up.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you want to consider as well. Insurance is another thing that can also go up in addition to taxes. Principal and interest is something that you don't have to worry about going up. That's locked in for 30 years if you get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. But if you have, but taxes and insurance, those are two things that can go up. If you live in an HOA fees can go up.
Yeah.
And that's something that's out of your control. If the HOA association decides we're going to go up $50 a month on everybody's fees, then you're spending $50 a month more now. Or if there's a special assessment, and
$700 a month. I just saw a condo this past weekend.
$700 a month for the condo association fee?
Yeah, because they're trying to refresh the hallways. And there was an insurance claim on the building, so the building's insurance went up. So now all of the owners have to help pay the higher insurance.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm not a condo fan.
I know you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are people out there that like the condo lifestyle and the whole living in a box in the sky.
But look, okay, this condo association also included gas, water, electricity, They had a little pool that looked like Martin Luther the King might have swam in it. I don't think they've redone it since 1962. However, they had, that was about it as far as amenities, and they're trying to refresh things, but basically all the utilities were included in their $1,300 a month HOA dues. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
$1,500 a month. And it was not like I said, it was one of the, let me just tell you, let me put it like this. It was in a building with absolutely no rental restrictions. If that kind of tells you maybe where it was, what the outside area looked like, and what the hall smelled like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No rental restrictions. That just spells investors coming in, buying up the units and renting them out to anyone that'll pay them $1. Yeah, that.
Whew. It was very herbal in the halls. Herbal, however you want to call it.
See, I'll say, I don't know. I like owning the ground underneath my feet.
Oh yes.
Which I guess is my preference. For everyone who doesn't know, one of the differences between a condo and a single family home is that with a condo, you own the space in between the four walls of your unit. But that's what you own. So whether you have a ground floor or a floor that's 16 floors up, you own the space, the airspace within those four walls. Mm-hmm. But when you own a single family home, you own the house and the land that it sits on. When you own a townhome, you own the house and the land that it sits on. But with a townhome, you share a wall with a unit that's right next to you. So you've got your unit and then you share a wall. However, the ground underneath your unit, and generally you'll have like a little yard, maybe in the front and the back. You own that. You own that yard, that little yard space, and then you own the ground underneath your unit as well as your unit. You just share a wall with whatever unit's right next to yours. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I'm just a big fan of owning the ground underneath. But
I know, because don't you got chickens?
I got chickens, and condos ain't really too high up on, raising chickens. And
they don't want to hear that in the morning. They don't want to hear that.
4:30 in the morning. My rooster is crowing.
Oh my goodness. Yes. But y'all got all them eggs over there. I told y'all I need to come get some.
I know. Yeah, y'all come buy some of these $5 eggs. Or you can go get them at $6 at the store, either way. But
see, you drive a hard bargain there, Middlebrooks. You drive a hard bargain.
No, but no, I'll say, what other expenses am I missing? So we've got we all have all the upfront costs and the maintenance costs and everything, and then the cost that can change that you need to be aware of as well. So the taxes can go up, insurance can go up. If you live in a homeowners association, that can also go up as well. So these are some of the things that in general you just need to plan for. I run across so many people nowadays who they're wanting to purchase a home but don't have any money. And I'm like, it puts me into, okay, I'm just go ahead and go into the next section that I was going to get into, because we're kind of leading there anyways, where it's like, okay, you want to buy a home, but you don't have any money. So this is what I'm going to say is one of the ways that you can tell if you're ready to even buy a home. If you don't have an ability to be able to save money on a monthly basis, you might not be ready to purchase a home. You should be able to save something out of every single paycheck, even if it's just $100. You should be able to save something out of every single paycheck and put it away for safekeeping. But I come across so many individuals who they have little to nothing in savings, but they've been working for years, and I don't know, spending wise where everything is going, but it's like you should be at a point where you can save money every single month, because you should be able to build that, because that's going to be needed when you become a homeowner. You don't know when you're going to get hit with that situation where, oh, there's a leak in the water pipe or whatever, and you need to get that repaired. And then you turn to your bank account and there's $82 in there. That's not going to cover it. And if you're thinking, oh, well, I've got insurance. Okay, so this thing with insurance is there's what's called a deductible. You have to pay the deductible before insurance comes in and covers the rest of it. And so you have to have an ability to be able to save some money so that you can take care of things when they come up. You have a house with a garage and the garage door goes out and stops working. Well, you can lift that garage up and down manually, or if you have saved some money, you can get your garage door fixed. Just all of these different types of things that, it's all your responsibility to take care of. You also benefit from the equity and the appreciation gain of that property, but you're responsible for taking care and maintaining and upkeeping the property as well. And so if you are
gonna lose every single bit of that equity when buyers come and they see they gonna discount your house by tens of thousands for someone that only cost you maybe a couple hundred or maybe a few thousand to fix.
Exactly. Because other people do not value your home the way you value it. You see your home as, oh, this is my baby. This is, what. Other people gonna look at your home and they're gonna say,
look at that ugly baby.
Yeah, look at this. Yeah,
it's not cute as you think.
No. They're like, yeah. I think it's overpriced, which is what every buyer is looking at your home like it's overpriced. You want more for it than what it's actually worth. And it might be the case, but it might not be the case. But just realize that the more you can maintain and upkeep that property and give them less of a reason to try and discount your price, the better off you'll be. And so you really do want to be in a position where you can save up money to maintain and upkeep the property. Floors do not last forever. Some floors last longer than others. Carpet needs to be cleaned. If you have carpet in your house, that is something that's going to need to be maintained and upkept, because that carpet starts to wear the more you walk over it, and the more, it starts to get dirty and everything. And eventually it's going to need to be replaced. Hardwood floors, even though they last really long time, if you maintain and upkeep them, they need to be maintained and upkept. You need to clean your hardwood floors every now and then. If you put a coat of wax over your hardwood floors, an extra layer of protectant to help protect them from, wear and tear when you're walking over and around the hardwood floors and everything. Because if you've ever walked in a home that has hardwood floors, the floors might still be in a condition where they can be, refinished and revitalized and everything. But if they currently look jacked up, people are going to discount that from your price if you're trying to sell it or get money from it. So
I was in a house yesterday. I know this house had to have cost this person at least $600,000-$800,000. And the wood floors, it was just very disappointing to see. Like, how sometimes the finish gets so worn off in some areas that it starts kind of graying. That it was just like a lot of scuffs, a lot of scratches, a lot of graying. And I'm like, now all this money they spent on this house and they're not keeping any wood floor. But hey, it's expensive. It's expensive.
It is.
But it's cheaper to maintain it than it is to replace it. So pick your poison, right? Pick your poison.
Well, yeah, you letting stuff fall apart is definitely gonna just end up worse for you, because oftentimes, like you said, it's cheaper to maintain it and upkeep it, because after you've let stuff go so far, what is called deferred maintenance, after you've deferred it for so long, then it just becomes exponentially more expensive. You defer maintaining and upkeeping your HVAC system. You defer maintaining and upkeeping, whatever it is. When something happens, you're just, okay, I'll fix it when it gets worse. Well, the worse is not only going to be worse for the condition of the house, but worse for your wallet and your budget, because it becomes more and more expensive. So Yeah, having being in that place where you can just save the money, I'll say is huge. If you do not have an ability to save money, take a good look at your budget, look at where you're spending your money and where you can make cutbacks. Because if you can't save money, I'm just go ahead and say it, you're not ready to purchase a home.
Mm-mm.
You're not ready. If every dollar in equals dollar out, you're not ready to purchase a home.
Preach to them. Preach to them. They don't be believing. They be thinking I'm hating, when I tell them this. So maybe they need to hear it from the loan guy, himself, because I think mortgage lenders do take that into consideration, not only your income and whatever you can show on your taxes, your W-2, your 1099 or what have you, but also your reserves.
Yes.
And I think it makes it. And then not only that, but they're looking at how long that's been in reserves. If you just put it in there right before you apply, I don't even think that they count. Do y'all count money that's been in there for like 15 days or 30 days?
No, we have to track it to see. We go back 2 months generally. We'll go back at least 2 months. But yeah, if it's been in there 15 days, we can count it if we can track where it came from, meaning that like if it was money that you transferred from another bank account that you own, then we're going to need 2 months bank account statements from that account. So either way, we're going to go back 2 months.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
And then if it was you sold a car or you sold something of high value and all of a sudden you had, 10,000 drop in your account. Well, okay, we're going to need to see the sales receipt and, everything to show that this was like a legit thing that happened so that we can actually count that money. Yeah, typically, like you said, we're going to want to see reserves. We're going to want to see how much you got in savings, what your income is, how much you're paying out in debt, because we want to know, okay, on top of paying the mortgage and all your other debts, you've got a cushion of money at, up here that you're not, stretched to the max of your budget. And so I know it's tough for a lot of people right now with the cost of living and everything and income and wages not keeping up with inflation and housing cost and everything. But another pill, I should say, that's tough to swallow is finding those areas that you don't have to live luxuriously in. Because I think, especially in our culture, in American culture, society, whatever, we are very much in the, I gotta have my 3 streaming services and I gotta have my, nails done and my hair done. And I gotta go out to eat, once or twice a week. And I gotta, take trips, living the Instagram lifestyle. Essentially, posting your best life yet.
You better get off of there. Trying to keep up with the Joneses, you're gonna be broke.
Exactly.
You have to move in with the Joneses too.
And it's like, if you got the money to go do that stuff and that's what you want to do, great. But if you don't make the money to live that kind of lifestyle comfortably, meaning that you can still continue. Exactly. It's like, if you don't have the money to live that kind of lifestyle comfortably, then you got to let that go. If you're not able to live that kind of lifestyle and still continue to save money, still continue to invest money,
yes,
you're not ready to, to live that lifestyle. So you need to make some cutbacks, or you need to hold off on purchasing a home because you're not ready for home ownership. Another one I'll see, since I'm, throwing salt in everybody's, cup of tea. Another one I see is like driving really nice cars on a budget that is less than what you should currently be driving. Again, there are people out there, I've seen it where they're, $800 car payments, $900 car payments. And it's like, you don't need a $900 car payment if you're currently struggling to save money. You have no money in savings. You don't, you're spending everything that comes in. We got to get disciplined. You got to get better.
Not imagine. I I've seen so many bank accounts where either they spend everything that they make, or the savings, as soon as they put some money in savings, they're taking it right back out.
Mhm.
Talking about you save. You don't. You don't save. Just because you put the money in there, it has to stay. You can't touch
It
it.
has to stay. And I'm not saying that all your money should be in savings, because I'm a big proponent of investing. So I think that if you have some money put away in savings, you should have the amount that you keep in savings or in a money market account, which will give you a higher rate of return than a savings account will, but still keep your money safe, should be enough to equal your emergency fund. So your emergency fund should be, in my opinion, 6 months worth of expenses, to be able to get you through 6 months, but at a minimum, 3 months of expenses. So if something were to happen, you've got enough money in a savings account or in a money market account where you can get through 3 months worth of, something just happened. I got to figure this out. You just lost your job. You know that the bills are still going to get paid. Everything with your life is still going to go on as usual for the next 3 months, because you've got that emergency fund of at least 3 months. Again, I recommend 6 months. 1 year is best case scenario, but I recommend 6 months, but a minimum of 3 months. Things can still keep ticking. We have another pandemic, world shuts down, and you're not making money like you used to, or you have a I didn't want to use the word catastrophe. I want to say you have like an emergency, something pops up unexpectedly. Maybe it's a unfortunate event like a car accident, or an unfortunate medical expense that comes up. Those are some of the things to where it's like, okay, you had these unfortunate events come up, but you have an emergency fund that you can tap into that can help you get through these situations without putting you in a situation where I see so many people getting put into, where they have all these medical bills that are unpaid, and everything, that because something happened and they didn't have any money to cover it. I think it was a statistic that I heard, I forget how long ago it was. Actually, it wasn't that long ago. I forget exactly where it came from, but it was about a month and a half, 2 months ago, that 60%, it was more than 60%. I forget the exact percentage, but it was more than half of Americans don't have $1,000 in their savings account to be able to cover $1,000 emergency if something were to pop up. So it's like, if something were to happen, the majority of Americans can't even look at their bank account and grab $1,000 to be able to take care of that.
Yep.
And that's a problem. So, I mean, we're talking about, are you ready to be able to purchase a home, or do you need to keep renting? Are you able to save up money, not just for maintenance and upkeep of a home, but also for an emergency fund for, when stuff happens, maybe not related to the home, but maybe related to your life, again, medical stuff or an accident or whatever else pops up. Are you able to take care of that type of thing? And so
I believe the term is being house poor.
I was actually just about to use that term. It's funny though, because I don't see people as being house poor, even though I know exactly where that term comes from, because it's like, oh, you have a house, but you have no money. Which, you have something of value, but it's hard to get the cash out of it if your finances aren't looking good. That's a whole nother conversation.
I feel like it's just like when you go on vacation, you spend all this money going to France or even just to San Antonio, Texas. Get there and you can pay for the room and the car, but that's it. Once you get there, you can't go nowhere, can't go to none of the attractions, can't do none of the tourist destinations, because all you really had money to do was get there. Yeah. And then you got to stay in the hotel room the whole time. I went on a trip like that once before. It wasn't my part of the trip, but it was the other people that we had traveled with, and we didn't want to make them feel bad, so we stayed in the room too. I said, never again.
Oh yeah, you take those trips where it's like, I had enough money to get there, but you can't enjoy the vacation the way you want to because you didn't budget or have the money to be able to really enjoy all of the stuff. So yeah,
that's right. And you mentioned appraisal inspection. insurance, mortgage insurance. Well, you didn't even mention mortgage insurance, but just basically homeowners insurance, HOA, and taxes. But there's a lot of other costs that's associated with, purchasing, which a lot of people don't really put into consideration. But I always, as a buyer's agent, I always make sure I tell the seller's agent, look, the buyers have moving costs as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they have their down payment and closing costs, which are each they're around 3% each, right? Generally, depending on the kind of loan that you have, but could be up to 20% for your down payment if you have a conventional loan and no down payment assistance.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have your agent that you're working with. You're going to have a buyer broker agreement with them. And if there's agents that are experienced, they know that they work hard. Like myself, we don't work below a certain amount. So if my minimum is 2.5%, whereas the norm is 3%, and you really, really like this 1.75% house, this house where the seller's paying the agent 1.75%, then it would be up to you to cover that 0.75%, if we cannot negotiate it from the seller. So that's also an expense for the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have gas money and time, because some folks just like looking at houses, but time is money.
Mm-hmm.
And so the time you have to take off from work, or the time that you have to take when you're off work, that you would be doing something else, I got to go see this house. All of those things, and in the gas money especially, it's not just on the agent, because the agents and their clients don't ride together anymore like they did back in the beginning days of agency, where the agent would pick their client up and cart them all over town to look at homes. But when you have those buyers, Lord have mercy, that's looking in DeKalb, Cobb, Newton, Clayton, they don't know where they want to live. They just gas money. And it's a lot. And then you also have, you might have insurance prepaids that the lender may require, right? They may require you to pay some of your mortgage insurance up front. And then your mortgage insurance, what is it, the upfront mortgage insurance premium that you have with FHA loans sometimes?
Yeah, with FHA. A lot of times it gets financed into
you
the
can
loan.
finance it, but if you don't want to, can't you can pay it, right?
Oh yeah, you can pay it up front if you don't want to, yeah.
As well as points, to try to get a lower interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
All of these are things that would really benefit a buyer if they had extra money to cover it. And these are expenses that you sometimes may not be able to avoid. So,
yeah,
I love what you said about, you have to be honest with yourself and take a good look at your finances. And if you're not saving every month, or if you're one of those people that's not willing to get an extra job, a little part-time something, or find a job that's going to pay you more, or whatever, you're happy and satisfied, then you also may be satisfied just renting. And there's nothing wrong with renting. It's just that we advocate. I mean, the name of the podcast is Greatest Asset Community. So we advocate home ownership simply because of what it affords you and provides for you after some years, the equity, the ability to borrow against the equity in your home, the ability to then use that money to fund an investment that's going to make you even more money, or the ability to move out of that home and then rent it out. And now you have extra income. Like all of these things are why we push home ownership over renting.
No, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that gives you a lot to think about, a lot of things to kind of just sit down and do an inventory, essentially, of where you're at right now. Do the scary work even of opening up your bank account and seeing the money that's in there. But don't just look at the balance of it, which is what most people do. How much money is in here? Go and look at the transaction history over the last 30 days, 60 days, and start taking inventory of where your money is going.
Where is it going? Right.
How much are you spending in Starbucks? Fast food. Yep. How much do you spend? Oh, it's lunchtime. You could pack you a lunch to take to work for cheaper then, oh, I'll just run over to Chipotle and grab another, rice and bean burrito or whatever it is that you eat during
$15
lunchtime.
burrito. You can make that at the house. You might spend $15 on the ingredient, but do you know how many burritos you can make if you go to the grocery store and spend $15 on all them same ingredients?
You can make more than one because Chipotle gonna charge you about $10, $12 for that one. But you spend about 10, 12, $15 and you can make about like 10 of those.
Yes, sir.
You could save yourself a lot of money by being a little bit smarter and putting a little bit more effort in as well. But just start taking inventory of where you're spending your money. I know a lot of people that they just do what's more convenient, but sometimes what's most convenient is going to cost you the most. And so look through that transaction history, see where your money's going, see how you're spending money. How much are you eating out at restaurants? Is that something that you do every week? Is it something that you do several times a month? Do you feel like you always need to treat yourself? Because there's nothing wrong with treating yourself every now and then, but there's also nothing wrong with abstaining from excess spending and putting all of that extra effort towards saving for a much more worthwhile investment than a meal. If you had to skip the next 3 months of eating out, but at the end of that, you were able to purchase a home, how much better would your life be positioned being a homeowner with an asset that's growing in value and, more stability that you have in terms of, your monthly payments with principal and interest being set for the next 30 years. I mean, how much better would you be, just from a wealth standpoint, but a financial standpoint, if you were at that position of, okay, you know what, I'm gonna go the next 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, even not eating out, and all that money that I normally spent every single week at Starbucks and at whatever your favorite restaurant is, I'm going to save that away. And then at the end of 3 or 6 months, you might have several hundred or maybe even $1,000 or so dollars that you've been able to put aside, but that might actually help you get to, closer into home ownership or whatever. So just start, thinking about those tough decisions that you can actually make if you're, not at a position where you can actually purchase. But with this episode being more specifically geared toward a money aspect of rent or buy, if you haven't noticed, we haven't spoken about the market. We haven't spoken much about, interest rates or much about inventory or much about, sellers are giving concessions to buyers. And we did talk about that in a previous episode a couple of weeks ago, but we've been mostly focusing on you as an individual. Where are your finances looking like? What are your, what's your ability to save? What's your money management looking like? Those are the things that are really going to make the determination on, are you ready to purchase a home? Not so much interest rates, home prices, and inventory. It's
right.
Can Susie save money every single month? Can Johnny, save up enough for an emergency fund? Can Johnny cover upfront cost as well as, whatever else is going to come up that might be a surprise emergency down the road? Those are the bigger things that are going to determine whether or not you're ready to purchase that home.
Right. Speaking back to what you said about, this Instagram lifestyle that people are trying to keep up with, I think it really needs to be said that there really are two, for when it comes to people that have money, and not necessarily wealthy people, but just people with disposable income. There's two types. You have the type that have all this disposable income because they just make so much money that they make way more than what their expenses are. So they just have it. Think entertainers, people with these big high profile jobs or whatever, right? But for the average American person, there's two different types. I feel like, there's people that just don't make enough, but then there are people who do, but they're very, very cautious about how they spend. And so it's not just all the time that I don't want people to think that the only people that are wealthy are those or that have disposable income are those that just making a whole bunch of money. No. Sometimes people that have disposable income have it because, like Frederick said, they are careful about how they spend their money. You know, they don't have to. I was watching this show on Oprah Winfrey Network. It's one of my guilty pleasures watching. Some people call it trash TV, but just like all these reality shows.
Oh
But one of them is
yeah,
called Somebody's
scripted
Son,
reality.
right? And so I like watching it because it's these four women and they're competing for this guy, and his mom is living in the house with the guy and the four women, and she's helping him make a decision on which female to choose. And the female, one of the challenges to see who they were going to eliminate next was tell us how much you spend on your monthly upkeep and maintenance, hair, nails, gym memberships, whatever. The majority of the females minimum was 1,200 and up. There was this one girl who said that she spent $20 a month, and they was like, girl, please, where? She's like, I get my eyebrows threaded twice a month and it's $10 each time. Other than that, if it's, my hair, I do my own hair, I do my own nails. There was another girl that saved a significant amount of money because she was like, I do my own hair, everything, I do my own waxes, I do everything myself. And the one girl that says she spent $20 a month, she says she has a house and she's trying to purchase another one. And so she has a goal that she's trying to reach. And so right now she's foregoing all of those things. I was like, that is so admirable. And that's what people need to hear. If you don't make the money that you would like to make, sometimes getting to the next place in life, the next level, does not necessarily mean that you have to have a second job or that you have to make all this money. It just means that you need to be wiser about how you spend it. I've had clients who only make, let's just say, under $2,500 a month in income. $300 a month they're spending on cigarettes, $500 a month they're spending on eating out, and you get food stamps. What's going on? So that's $800 before you take care of your $1,500 a month house note and your $700 a month car note. We're not talking about the insurance for that car, your phone bill, your gas bill, your water bill. All the bills that could possibly be deferred were on payment plans and deferred pay. That's not how you're supposed to live. Do you make enough money? She did make enough money, but she would have to been tight. People they want to live however they see people living on Instagram, and they think that this is the real world. That's why I got off of social media back in December, and I've never felt more free. Stop looking at everybody else's life, because you can't, you don't know. They could. There are so many people who make content in Airbnbs or in other people's houses, and they're passing it off as theirs, and they live this lifestyle, taking pictures in front of other folk cars that they see in parking garages. That's not their car.
But make sure you tune into the podcast on YouTube.
Comparing our lifestyles and what we want to people that it may not even be, or even if it is theirs, they probably have the money to cover it. Mm-hmm. So, we got to think about those things.
Oh yeah, just cutting off social media, but make sure you turn into the podcast on YouTube.
Listen, YouTube, I use YouTube every day, so yes, absolutely.
But no, absolutely. But I agree. You know what? I do not disagree. It wouldn't be a bad thing for a lot of us to spend less time on social media, because there's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses that happens on social media. People are like, oh, they're, and also realize people show you their best on social media. That's not their norm. That's not their everyday of most of what you're seeing, people taking these lavish trips and, taking their, whatever once a week fine dining experience that they take. And, they post their best on social media, and they want you to see this is how I'm living and everything. Stop it. Stop it. Like,
literally.
First of all, why is it even that important, that someone else is taking a nice lavish trip somewhere and wants to, show that off for you and have you envying what it is that you think they have, because they might not even be living a life like that. They might just be They done emptied their whole bank account to take this trip and have these photos that they can post on Instagram and make other people, you know, get some likes about stuff, because everybody's chasing those likes now and followers and everything. And, you know, stop it. There is much more important stuff. You have millionaires out here who are actually living the life that you would never know it. They walk past you in Walmart or in Home Depot or whatever, and you would never know that they actually have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank and millions of dollars in assets, because they're not out there flaunting it on social media. They're actually just doing the work that it takes to get the result that they want to get. And they're quietly going about their day, quietly going about their life. They're not, you know, showcasing them on the next private jet, showcasing them on the next whatever else. They're just, look, I'm just going about, you know, doing what I do, and they don't have to showcase it. And they live, you know, comfortably.
I've often heard that the people with the most money live the most under the radar type of lives. The people with real money. I'm not talking about that money as soon as they buy something, they, you know, they got to start all over again. But I'm talking about that wealth, actually. I think there's a difference between being rich and then actually having wealth, meaning that you have your money in, you've got stocks, bonds, investments, savings, not just money in the bank. You have businesses, things that are actually generating more wealth for you in your sleep. That's wealth. Riches is just, you have 100,000, 300,000 in the bank, but that's literally all you have. That's not what we're after.
It's gone.
Right.
You spend that money, it's gone. So.
Oh, I like it. I love it. This was good, Frederick.
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, take inventory. It's gonna be much better. But if you don't know how to do that, talk to Jilly. She can set you straight.
Every time.
But no, tune in Fridays. Every episode, we'll be dropping a new episode every Friday. So make sure you tune in on Fridays. Tuesdays, Home Finance Hacks, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live on YouTube. Till next time, take care, be blessed, and we'll see you next week.